Hello all you bagpipers out there. I've got a new tech toy to have a look at today. I thought I would do a review on it because I haven't used it before, and it certainly piqued my curiosity when I saw it. A piper I play with said, hey, give this a go. So I said, why not? And so basically I have to try and get used to this. I've tried it for a little while now, and there's some positive signs I'm seeing. I think it's quite interesting actually. But I'm not totally sure how to put it into good use. There were a couple of things that came to my attention. The one was basically how sensitive it is to measure pressure compared to frequency. So that's why I put the BlowPro app on this phone over here, and on the left I've got the BlowPro set up. It's all connected and everything. It works really well out the box. No problems installing it, no problems connecting it up and setting it up with Bluetooth was really easy. So we're going to try this. We're going to change the sampling. I'm going to push it up a little bit. That might help. And we're going to record again. Okay, and we're going to see what sort of deviation we get and how those little lines all work without touching them. I'm just going to have a listen to how I'm playing. And I'll start the recording once it's got air going through it. I wonder if it's possible to get that dead flat. I don't even think it's humanly possible. But that being said, I'd be very interested to see if folks out there are getting that. So note what I'm going to do. I'm going to, that might be in the middle or not. I'm going to use my ears for where I want the sound to be, and then I'm going to watch the frequency measure. What we're going to do now is basically try and understand how the frequency measure translates into the pressure measure and how sensitive it is. A change in frequency of around about 1.68 hertz is audible to the human ear using frequency selectivity. Obviously there's a lot of other variables, but that gives you an idea. 10 is what this measures, and it only equates to 1 hertz on here. Then no matter how perfectly you blow there, it's probably not even audible to the ear. That being said, it could also be a whole lot of other things like the microphone and all the rest of those sorts of things. But for this experiment, just for the purposes of demonstration, I'm going to try playing a C consistently. It might not be dead on the middle there, but I'm going to play it by the hertz and try and keep it within a range of 4 hertz either way. Okay, and which shouldn't be a problem. And then see how that translates to here. And then also I'm going to flatten it off to sort of below 4 hertz, so let's take it down below 600 and maybe up above 610 and see what we get in terms of the pressure reference. Alright, so that was interesting. As you could hear, you can hear the sound change once it travels about 3 or 4 hertz out. Okay, I mean that's very, very evident, I think, if you listen to the sound. And by all means, go back on this video and actually have a listen and see where it changed, and you can actually see the frequency measure here, so you can get an idea of where that change in perception comes in terms of how you perceive or listen to that sound in your mind. Now, this is the review, and this is interesting. This gives us some data to work with. So that was at 604. I mean, that was a 2 hertz variation there. I guess the deviation would have been, I'll have to go back to the video and see what the deviation is there, because I think on the website they're saying Pro Piper would have 0.100 deviation, which I think could make you like superhuman. So that being said, if there's somebody out there that can play this at 0.100 deviation, I want to hear that. So that being said, though, I mean, it does make sense if you look here that that line seems pretty straight over here, and the deviation would have to calculate or look back on the video, get an idea. My guess it's going to be under 5. Drops off and then it goes pretty steady. So I dropped off the sound, so you can hear that, and that distance represents what's an audible sound, something that you can hear in the change of the frequency. So it's more than 4 hertz, because we dropped it down to about 599 or something like that. Then we kept it steady at that, brought it up to 610, and sort of kept it steady at 610, and then that's where we stopped. Okay, so from this, I'm taking the thought that this is probably a good tool to use if you know how to use it. And I don't know if you look at this line over here, and there's a lot of sampling. I put it up to 8, the sampling, so that it's going to be a lot less flush than the other one was. But that being said, that line there, if you look at it visually, represents a pretty consistent sound at 604 or 605 or wherever we were. It didn't vary much more than 1 hertz out of it, whereas that deviation there represents an audible change. So you need to understand what's the deviation that represents an audible change in the frequency. That being said, I'm sure there's lots of people think and perceive differently. So maybe some people like to be able to get a physical measure. This is not unlike a manometer. And some people like to have a visual measure, so that they want to see this little thing move. For me, I use my ears first, and then I'm just referencing it with the frequency. The other thing it doesn't measure, obviously, is the timbre. So you get that sweet spot, as I spoke to you about in my video on tuning pipes and things like that. So go and have a look at that. Try and get an understanding of how that timbre is important, because what happens is, regardless of your absolute frequency, there is a sort of sweet spot where you get the best sound out of the reed in terms of its sort of complex overtones and those sorts of things. You go past that, even though you're blowing steady, you could be blowing steady there or there or there, as I was roughly doing. You're getting a sort of different sound. So you could, if I go from there to there, you can hear it goes relatively flat. If I just started on that, and maybe I'll try that, is just put that little clip on after this and see how that sounded on its own. You wouldn't have any relative judge to say, it went from there to there, therefore it's flattened off. So basically, you might just say, hey, that's C at 50, whatever it was. So that's all interesting. And I suppose ultimately, I think you could probably use both of these tools. You can use the BlowPro for a lot of things that this can do as well. Like if you're just using that visual reference of the needle, especially the updated app, it's got a very much better sort of user interface, so you can see what's going on here. And this thing moves ever so subtly as well. I'm not sure how closely calibrated it is to the frequency measure. You need to be consistent, and you need to find that really good sweet spot. And I suppose it's personal preference as well. Some people like to blow on the flat side, some people like to blow on the high side. That's all good and well, but I think, if you experiment a little bit and find out where that sound kicks in, where you hear that fullness of sound, and try and lock into that, that's probably the best way, is using your ears and referencing. So once you find that sound, you can go, right, okay, I'm sitting, and you can read this frequency measure, not even look at the needle if you don't want to, and just go, right, that's 605, I want to keep it there.